Have you ever met a woman who never raises her voice, yet the whole room goes quiet when she speaks? She is not loud. She is not desperate for attention. But something about her presence tells you, this woman has survived things you will never fully understand. Strength like that is rare. It is not built in comfort. It is forged in silence, in pain, in nights no one saw. Today, I want to show you the 7 quiet signs that reveal a truly strong woman, signs the world often overlooks. And by the end of this, you will never look at strength the same way again. 1. She has made peace with being misunderstood. Sit with me for a moment. Let go of the noise in your mind. I want to speak to you about something few people ever talk about. The quiet weight of being misunderstood. There was a time in my life when I believed that if I explained myself clearly enough, if I was patient enough, people would finally see me. They would understand my choices, my pain, my silence. But life taught me something different. Some people will never understand you, not because you failed to explain, not because you did something wrong, but because understanding another person requires a willingness that not everyone has. A strong woman learns this early. She learns that her worth does not depend on being understood by everyone in the room. She learns that explaining herself over and over, defending her decisions, justifying her pain, this is not strength. This is exhaustion disguised as effort. Think about the moments in your own life when you tried so hard to be understood. Think about the energy you spent hoping someone would finally see your side. Now ask yourself, did that effort change how they saw you, or did it only drain you further? This is the first quiet transformation inside a strong woman. She stops performing her pain for an audience that was never paying attention. She stops needing validation from people who were never going to give it. Instead, she turns inward. She begins to understand herself, deeply, honestly, even when no one else does. This is not bitterness. This is not withdrawal from the world. It is something far more powerful. It is self-possession. It means she can walk into a room full of people who judge her, misread her, whisper about her, and still remain calm. Not because she doesn't feel it. She feels it completely. But she has learned that their misunderstanding is not her responsibility to fix. I want you to think about someone in your life who does not understand you. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a friend who drifted away. Maybe it's someone who judged you without knowing your story. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your energy have you given trying to change their story? Perception. A strong woman reaches a point where she redirects that energy, not into anger, not into revenge, but into her own growth. She becomes so anchored in who she is that the opinions of others become distant noise, not a storm that shakes her foundation. This peace does not come overnight. It comes slowly, through many disappointments, many moments of being let down by people she hoped would understand her. But each disappointment teaches her the same lesson. Peace is not found in being understood by everyone. Peace is found in understanding yourself so completely that misunderstanding no longer has the power to wound you. And once she reaches this place, something remarkable happens. She becomes free. Free from the exhausting need to explain herself. Free from the fear of judgment. Free to live according to her own truth, not the approval of others. But this freedom brings a new question. If she no longer explains herself to be understood, how does she communicate at all? How does she protect her peace without becoming cold or distant? The answer lies in something most people mistake for weakness, but it is, in truth, one of the most powerful tools a human being can possess. 2. Her silence is not weakness. It is mastery. There is a kind of silence that comes from fear. It is the silence of someone who is afraid to speak, afraid to be seen, afraid of conflict. This is not the silence I want to speak about today. There is another kind of silence. A silence that is chosen, not forced. A silence that comes not from fear, but from wisdom. This is the silence of a woman who has learned that not every battle needs her voice. Not every insult needs a response. Not every provocation deserves her energy. In the quiet of nature, there is a lesson everyone can learn. A tall tree does not argue with the wind. It bends, it sways, but its roots remain still and deep beneath the ground. This is not weakness. This is mastery over its own nature. A strong woman learns this same mastery When someone tries to provoke her, she does not always respond immediately. She pauses, she observes, she listens, not just to what is said, but to what is truly meant beneath the words. This pause is not hesitation, it is control. It is the deliberate choice to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion. Think about the last time someone said something hurtful to you. What was your first instinct? To defend yourself immediately, to match their energy. Most of us react this way because our minds are trained to respond to attack with attack. But a strong woman has trained her mind differently. She has learned that reacting instantly often gives away her power, while responding with patience preserves it. This kind of silence is not about suppressing emotion. She feels everything deeply: anger, hurt, disappointment. But she has learned to sit with these emotions before she allows them to speak through her. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is immediate, emotional, and often regretted. Responding is thoughtful, intentional, and rooted in self-respect. There is great power in this pause. When you do not immediately give people the reaction they expect, you take back control of the moment. You stop being a puppet to their provocations. You stop letting other people's behavior dictate your emotional state. I have watched many people mistake calmness for weakness. They see a woman who does not shout, who does not argue, who does not defend herself loudly, and they assume she has nothing to say, but often the opposite is true. Her silence is full of understanding. Her calm is full of strength. She has simply chosen not to waste her energy proving herself to people who are not ready to listen. This mastery over silence also protects her peace. Every time she chooses not to engage in unnecessary conflict, she preserves her inner calm. She does not carry the weight of every argument, every insult, every misunderstanding. She lets much of it pass, like clouds moving across the sky, without letting it disturb the stillness underneath. But here is something important to understand. This silence does not mean she is passive. It does not mean she allows herself to be mistreated without consequence. There is a difference between staying silent out of peace and staying silent out of fear. A strong woman knows this difference completely. When silence no longer serves her well-being, when a boundary must be protected, she speaks, clearly, calmly, and without apology. This brings us to something even deeper, because a woman who has mastered silence, who no longer needs to explain herself to everyone, still carries wounds from her past. The question becomes, what does she do with those wounds? Does she let them harden her, or does something else happen entirely? 3. She forgives, but she never forgets the lesson. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood ideas in human life. Many people believe forgiveness means forgetting. They believe it means allowing someone back into your life exactly as they were before, as if nothing happened. This is not forgiveness. This is denial. A strong woman understands forgiveness differently. She forgives, not because the other person deserves it, but because she deserves peace. She lets go of the anger, not because the pain wasn't real, but because carrying that anger any longer would only continue to hurt her, long after the other person has moved on with their life. Think about anger as a weight you carry on your shoulders. Every day you hold on to resentment. You carry that weight with you, into your work, your relationships, your own thoughts. The person who hurt you may not even remember what they did, but you are still carrying the pain, still replaying the moment, still allowing it to affect your present. Forgiveness, true forgiveness, is the act of putting that weight down. It is not for them. It is for you. But here is where wisdom becomes essential. A strong woman forgives, but she does not forget the lesson. She does not pretend the pain never happened. She does not walk back into the same situation, expecting a different result. She remembers what that experience taught her, about people, about boundaries, about her own worth. This is the balance between forgiveness and wisdom. Forgiveness releases the emotional burden. Memory protects her from repeating the same mistake. Together, they create something powerful. A woman who can move forward without bitterness, but also without naivety. Think about your own life. Is there someone you have not forgiven? Someone whose actions you still replay in your mind, whose words still sting when you remember them? I want you to consider who is truly being punished by that unforgiveness. Often, It is not them, it is you. But also think about this. Have you forgiven someone, only to allow them to hurt you again in the same way? This is where many people confuse forgiveness with forgetting the lesson entirely. A strong woman does not make this mistake twice. She can forgive her father for his absence, while still choosing not to depend on unreliable people. She can forgive a friend for their betrayal, while still protecting her trust more carefully moving forward. She can forgive herself for past mistakes, while still learning from them deeply. This capacity to forgive, without forgetting, comes from something deeper than willpower. It comes from self-respect. She forgives because holding on to anger contradicts the peace she has worked so hard to build within herself. The same peace born from no longer needing to be understood by everyone. The same peace protected by her mastery of silence. All three of these truths are connected. The woman who has made peace with being misunderstood no longer needs external validation to heal. The woman who has mastered silence no longer reacts from wounded emotion. And the woman who forgives without forgetting no longer allows her past to control her future. Together, these qualities do not make her hard. They make her whole. She is not strong because she has never been broken. She is strong because she has been broken many times and chose each time to rebuild herself with more wisdom than before. If you recognize even one of these truths in yourself, understand this. You are already further along this path than you realize. The pain you have carried, the misunderstanding you have endured, the anger you have released, none of it was wasted. Every part of it shaped the quiet, unshakable strength that now lives within you. 4. She stands alone without feeling lonely. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely, and most people spend their whole lives confusing the two. Being alone is a state of the body. It simply means no one else is in the room. But loneliness is a state of the heart. It is the feeling of emptiness, even when surrounded by people. You can sit in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter and conversation, and still feel completely alone. And you can sit by yourself, in complete silence, and feel entirely at peace. A strong woman learns to separate these two experiences. She learns that solitude is not something to fear, it is something to understand. In solitude, there is no performance, no one to impress, no expectations to meet, just her and her own thoughts, fully present with herself. Think about how much of your life is shaped by the presence of others. The way you speak changes, depending on who is listening. The way you dress, the way you act, even the way you think. Much of it is shaped by an audience, whether you realize it or not. But when you are alone, truly alone, something interesting happens. The performance stops. What remains is the truth of who you are. Many people avoid this truth. They fill every silence with noise. A phone, a television, a conversation, anything to avoid sitting with their own thoughts. Why? Because solitude forces honesty. It removes distraction and leaves only reflection. And reflection can be uncomfortable, especially for someone who has spent years avoiding their own inner world. A strong woman does not run from this discomfort. She sits with it. She allows herself to feel whatever solitude brings up, sadness, memories, unanswered questions, without immediately trying to escape it. Over time, this practice changes her relationship with being alone. What once felt frightening becomes familiar. What once felt empty becomes peaceful. This is why she can walk away from relationships that no longer serve her, even when she does not have another relationship waiting to replace it. This is why she can leave a job, a friendship, even a family situation that harms her well-being, without knowing exactly what comes next. She has already proven to herself that she can survive her own company. She does not need external presence to feel complete, because she has already met herself fully, in silence, and found that she is enough. Think about your own comfort with solitude. Can you sit alone with your thoughts for an hour without needing distraction? Can you make a difficult decision, stand by it, and walk forward, even if no one else agrees with you? This capacity is not something people are born with. It is built, moment by moment, through the willingness to be alone, without escaping into distraction or dependency. There is something else that happens when a woman becomes comfortable with solitude. She stops choosing relationships out of fear of being alone. Instead, she starts choosing relationships because they add genuine value to a life that is already whole. This changes everything. She no longer stays in situations simply because leaving feels frightening. She leaves because staying would mean betraying herself, and she has already learned that her own company is safe. But standing alone is not the end of this journey, because even in solitude, even in strength, something remains that most people overlook completely: the way she treats others, especially after everything she has been through. 5. Her kindness has survived her pain. This is perhaps the most quietly remarkable thing about a truly strong woman. After everything, after being misunderstood, after mastering her silence, after forgiving what she did not deserve, after learning to stand alone, she is still kind. Think about how rare this actually is. Pain has a way of hardening people. Betrayal makes many people suspicious of everyone. Disappointment makes many people cynical, guarded, cold. It would be understandable, even expected, for a woman who has endured deep pain to become bitter, to close herself off completely, to treat kindness as a weakness she can no longer afford. But a strong woman does something different. She takes her pain and refuses to let it define how she treats other people. She remembers what it felt like to be hurt, and instead of passing that hurt on to others, she uses it as a compass for compassion. She becomes gentle with people precisely because she knows what it feels like to be treated without gentleness. This is not weakness. This is one of the most difficult forms of strength there is. It is far easier to become hard after pain. It is far easier to protect yourself by shutting everyone out, by assuming the worst in people, by matching the coldness you received with coldness of your own. What takes real strength is choosing warmth again and again, even when the world has given you every reason to choose otherwise. Think about the people in your life who have hurt you the most. Now think about how you treat strangers, colleagues, even people who have nothing to do with that pain. Do you find yourself becoming shorter with people, more suspicious, less patient? This is a natural response to unhealed pain. But a woman who has done the inner work, who has faced her wounds honestly instead of burying them, finds a way to keep her heart open, even while protecting herself wisely. This kindness is not naive. She is not kind because she is unaware of how cruel people can be. She is kind despite knowing exactly how cruel people can be. This distinction matters deeply. Naive kindness comes from inexperience. Wise kindness comes from someone who has been hurt, healed, and chosen compassion anyway. Her kindness also does not mean she allows herself to be mistreated. Remember, she has already learned the mastery of silence, the wisdom of forgiveness, without forgetting the lesson. Her kindness exists alongside boundaries, not instead of them. She can be warm to a stranger and firm with someone who tries to take advantage of her warmth. She can offer patience to someone struggling while still refusing to tolerate disrespect. This balance, kindness with boundaries, warmth with wisdom, is one of the clearest signs of a woman who has done deep internal work. It shows that her compassion was not left untouched by pain. It was tested by pain, and it survived. There is something quietly powerful about a person who remains gentle after everything they have endured. It tells you they made a conscious choice, over and over, not to let the world's cruelty turn them cruel in return. And that choice, repeated daily, becomes one of the deepest expressions of inner strength a person can carry. But there is one final truth that ties everything together, one that many people spend their trek without realizing they already hold the answer within themselves. 6. She no longer seeks permission to be herself. For most of her life, she may have waited for approval before making a decision, waited for someone to tell her she was good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, waited for permission to take up space, to speak her mind, to want what she wanted without guilt or apology. This waiting is something many people carry silently without even realizing it. It shows up as hesitation before speaking an honest opinion. It shows up as shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. It shows up as constantly checking whether your choices are acceptable to everyone around you before deciding whether they are acceptable to yourself. A strong woman reaches a point where this waiting stops, not because she becomes arrogant or dismissive of others, but because she finally understands a truth that took years of pain, silence, forgiveness, solitude, and compassion to fully absorb. Her life belongs to her. This does not happen suddenly. It is not a single moment of realization that changes everything overnight. It is built slowly, through every experience we have spoken about today, through learning that she does not need everyone to understand her, through mastering the pause between provocation and reaction, through forgiving what hurt her while remembering the lesson it taught, through discovering that solitude is not something to fear, through choosing kindness even when the world gave her reasons not to. Each of these experiences chips away at the need for external permission. Each one teaches her to trust her own judgment more than the opinions of people who were never walking her path. And slowly, without announcement, without dramatic declaration, she simply begins living differently. She makes decisions without needing a committee of approval. She pursues what matters to her, even if others do not understand why. She speaks her truth, calmly and clearly, without waiting to see if it will be well received first. This is not rebellion. It is not defiance for the sake of defiance. It is simply the natural result of a woman who has done the deep internal work of understanding herself so completely that she no longer needs anyone else's validation to know who she is. Think about your own life for a moment. How many decisions have you delayed, waiting for someone else's approval? How many dreams have you quieted because you were afraid of what others might think? How much of your authentic self have you hidden, simply to remain comfortable and accepted? The truth is, permission was never actually required. It only felt that way because somewhere along your journey, you were taught that your worth depended on the acceptance of others. But worth is not something given by outside approval. It is something recognized from within, cultivated through every difficult experience life has placed before you. If you have felt misunderstood and made peace with it anyway, that was strength. If you have mastered your silence instead of reacting from wounded emotion, that was strength. If you have forgiven someone without forgetting the lesson they taught you, that was strength. If you have learned to sit alone without feeling empty, that was strength. If your kindness has remained intact despite everything that tried to harden you, that was strength. And if you are beginning to live without waiting for permission to be exactly who you are, that is the deepest strength of all. None of these qualities arrived easily. They were shaped through discomfort, through disappointment, and through moments when giving up would have been far simpler than continuing forward. But here you are, still standing, still growing, still becoming more fully yourself with every difficult season you move through. Strength was never about never breaking. It was always about what you chose to build with the pieces afterward. And if even one part of what has been shared today feels familiar to your own life, understand this clearly. You are not just surviving your story. You are quietly, steadily, becoming the strongest version of yourself that you have ever been.